When you think about national security threats, you probably picture sophisticated code, maybe state-sponsored cyber armies. But what if the biggest vulnerability wasn't a firewall at all, but just a simple phone call? This is the story of how a security breach at the very highest level of U.S. intelligence had an origin so simple, it's honestly shocking.
It all starts back in October of 2015 with this document right here. It's an FBI criminal complaint, and it details an intrusion right into the heart of the U.S. intelligence community. And yeah, it reads like something out of a spy movie, but every single word of it is real. The target was one of the most protected men in the country. The weapon was a telephone.
Imagine getting this message. This is what was delivered to a top U.S. official, not from some rival nation, but from the hackers themselves. It was just this brazen declaration of victory, a taunt, really, announcing a breach that most people thought would be impossible. The sheer confidence in that statement, it's chilling. They weren't just in, they were in complete control. Now, to really get a sense of just how big this hack was, you have to understand who the target was. This wasn't just any government official. No, this was an attack on America's top spy.
The prize, it turns out, was the personal AOL email account of the director of the CIA, John Brennan. Now, of course, his official communications were locked down tight, but his private account? That became the way in. It's a classic case of the personal becoming very, very dangerously professional.
So what did they find in there? Well, it was an absolute goldmine of sensitive data. We're talking Brennan's entire 47-page application for his security clearance, a document that details pretty much his whole life, the social security numbers of other top intelligence officials, a contact list with over 2,600 names, and even a government letter discussing harsh interrogation techniques. This wasn't just embarrassing, it was a catastrophic failure of intelligence.
And that brings us to the real mystery here, right? How on earth does this happen? How does the director of the CIA, an agency that's literally built on secrets and security, get hacked through his old AOL account? The answer is somehow both simpler and way more disturbing than you'd probably guess.
You see, the weapon used here wasn't some billion-dollar piece of malware. It wasn't some crazy sophisticated code cooked up in a secret lab. The weapon was deception. It was a human hack, and it targeted the single weakest link in any security chain: people.
The whole process was just shockingly simple. First, the hackers called Verizon, and they pretended to be a technician. They managed to trick a customer service agent into giving them Brennan's account number, his PIN, and other personal details. Then, with all that info, they called AOL, pretending to be Brennan himself, saying he was locked out of his account. They used the details they just stolen to answer the security questions, convinced AOL to reset the password, and just like that, they were in.
You know, there's a name for this technique. It's called social engineering. It's really the art of psychological manipulation. Instead of trying to break down a digital door, you just convince somebody who has the key to open it up for you. It's less about code and much more about confidence. And in this case, wow, was it effective.
So, who were these master manipulators? Who was capable of pulling off a heist of this magnitude? The answer, when it came out, pretty much shocked the world.
The people responsible for this weren't from a rival intelligence agency, they weren't some state-sponsored hacking group. They were, according to investigators, a small group of high school students from the US and the UK, teenagers. One report literally described them as pot-smoking kids who were just bored.
According to the FBI's own affidavit, the group called themselves Crackers with Attitude, or CWA for short. And just look at their online handles. Cracka, Derp, Cubed. They weren't exactly hiding in the shadows, they were operating right out in the open on social media.
And if you want to know what their mindset was like, just look at this direct message between two of the members. "I fucking own this loser," one of them writes. "I have just released emails of them admitting to torture." The tone is so casual, so arrogant, and it's completely detached from how serious their actions really were. To them, it was like a game.
Their defiance is just crystal clear in this quote from another private message documented by the FBI. Even with the threat of being arrested hanging over their heads, the plan was just to keep going. They weren't just in it for the thrill, they actually believed they were protesting. This wasn't the end for them, it was the start of a whole campaign. So what was their motivation? Well, the hackers themselves claimed it was all political. They were very open about their opposition to American foreign policy, and they used hashtags like Free Palestine in their posts. They even told reporters they were doing it because, and this is a quote, "the government are killing innocent people."
Okay, so you have the nation's secrets being leaked on Twitter, and the perpetrators are openly taunting the authorities. As you can imagine, the response was swift and it was massive. A huge digital manhunt began, involving the highest levels of federal law enforcement.
The speed at which this whole thing unfolded is just remarkable. On October 12th, they get in. What follows is this digital tug-of-war for control of the account. By the 19th, it's all public, with documents popping up online. Just one day later, the FBI and the Secret Service announce a joint investigation. In a little over a week, a prank call had spiraled into a full-blown national security crisis. And the consequences, well, they were going to be severe. As former CIA analyst Aki Puritz pointed out, you just don't hack the director of the CIA and walk away. He said, posting the personal information of a senior government official and then bragging about it, you are going to have the full weight of the law come down on you.
So what did we learn from all this? The case of the teenage hackers, it really left a permanent mark on the world of security. It exposed a vulnerability that technology, by itself, can never, ever fix.
What this really did was reveal a critical disconnect. We spend all this time preparing for these armies of state-sponsored hackers and building billion-dollar digital defenses against complex malware. But the actual threat here? It was a teenager with a phone. The weapon wasn't code. It was a convincing lie. And the point of failure was a customer service agent who was probably just trying to do their job.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to the human element. The most advanced encryption, the most secure server, all of it can be completely bypassed by exploiting our natural instinct to trust people and to want to help. It's still the greatest and most unpredictable vulnerability in any system.
And that leaves all of us with one final, pretty unsettling question. This story isn't just about John Brennan or the CIA. It's a wake-up call, because if the man with access to the world's biggest secrets can be compromised by a teenager with a phone, what does that say about the rest of us? Who really is safe?